It's no secret that we're going through the largest transformation any of us have ever experienced. In fact, I would hazard to say any humans have ever experienced. And all transformations, no matter how large or how small, always have three phases. And these three phases can't be skipped at all. They've got to be able to understood where you are in the phases, and the fact that these phases are actually not intellectual phases, but emotional ones. And this massive transformation that we're going through is not something for us to think through, but for us to feel through. And many of us have never been trained to feel through things, but always intellectualizing them. Now, whether you're moving from one house to another, from one job to another, or this massive transformation where we're going from humans before AI to humans after AI, the very first step of transformation is always sadness. Sadness to leave the shore of familiarity. Sadness to leave our comfort zones, and sometimes sadness to leave the identity that we've been developing for the last 10, 20, or even 30 years. And the second phase of transformation is arriving at a strange new world that makes no sense whatsoever. A strange new world that we don't quite have the skills in, a strange new world that we feel old. Because as the new technology starts to arrive, we don't seem to have the skills to want to add value to it. Now, here's the thing, is that in order for us to arrive at strangeness with optimism, fascination, and curiosity, we have to process the emotion of sadness. And most people don't even know that they've gone through a process of sadness, let alone process sadness as an emotion. And if we don't process sadness as an emotion, we arrive at strangeness with trepidation, with anxiousness, and even some anger. It was C.S. Lewis who said it best. He said, "I sat with my anger long enough until she told me her name was grief." And where we are in the world today are people squarely between sad and strange, not processing their emotions, arriving at strangeness with anger and trepidation, and not executing on any of the new things because there's a lack of an emotional intelligence that needs to see us through this process of change. Now, if I had more time with you, I'd explain to you that eventually all transformations arrive at an adventure, but we're a good 5 to 10 years away from any adventure starting. Over the next 5 to 10 years, what we're going to be having is the implosion of many more structures that we once implicitly trusted. Think about education, and you used to go and get a degree and you were guaranteed a job. Today, you're guaranteed nothing by your degree. Remember when you used to go to the hospital and whatever the doctor told you was golden? Today, there's a double check on Google and your auntie and everybody else to check that the doctor is not talking rubbish. And you remember when the news used to come on and we used to all think the news was gospel. And today we know it's a propaganda machine. Depends on which news channel you want to listen to and what you want to believe. So all these structures, even the US dollar, is now up for question. We're all thinking, well, all these things we once trusted are starting to shift, and this is the transformation that we are going through and in the middle of. Now, let's also remember that our organizational structures, our educational structures, and even some of our governmental structures have created an undertone in our human collective called fragile optimism. And what fragile optimism is this addiction to certainty, like I was speaking about in the video, is that our brains have been wired for certainty, have been wired for an outcome. We haven't been really wired for change. I know some of your dating bios might say you're spontaneous, but you're really not. Because we don't know how to be spontaneous in our brains, even though we like to think we are. And this addiction to certainty has created fragile optimism, which means that if things work out like I want them to, then I'll be optimistic. And if they don't, then I'm going to blame my ex, and I'm going to blame the other political party, and I'm going to blame my old boss. I'm not going to take any responsibility for it. And ultimately, hopefully by the end of this talk, we would have developed an understanding of something called agile optimism. And agile optimism says, I don't care about the outcome. All I'm worried about is the behavior towards the change. And that's the real key, is that the change itself is not so much to focus on, but the behavior towards the change.